Welcome to the SWBL podcast presented once again for season 22 by 1356 Public House. Also want to go ahead and shout out the rest of our sponsors that have returned. Kedding Eye Center is coming back again as a division sponsor. We've got Four Hands, Logix, Ballast Dental Care, Spencer Gear, Breckx, and Chill Designs, all returning to the sponsorship family. And so we are so grateful to all of our partners in our endeavor, and just grateful to have that support back. So wanted to shout them out at the top, not at the bottom. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Also need to apologize to the two fans out there listening. It has been quite a while since we've posted any podcast, and that's mostly on me, just taking a break, family life.
You deserve it.
Kind of got out of the swing of it. So we're back though. We're going to start putting out more and more content as we build up to season 22 for Memorial Day weekend. Tonight I am joined by the one and only commissioner of the SWBL, Sam Skibbe. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Brian. You deserved the break. And yeah, new year, season 22 is on the horizon. So yeah, I'll help you pump out some of these more podcasts. And, being a work at home fella now, I, can somewhat get some of these podcasts at home if need be.
Yeah. Well, we've got a fun episode to start off the new season for you guys. We're going to recap kind of everything that's happened since the break, kind of go over our winter meeting, which was just held right around the end of the year there. Sam's going to give us a breakdown of what was kind of discussed. We had a poker night, our first poker night, and just kind of how that went. We're also going to talk about and look at just who's been signed out of the free agent pool, and who's still available out there. A lot of those players are probably going to re-sign with their teams, but want to highlight a few players there. And then really the big thing that we're going to be doing is jumping into our top 22 player countdown. So we'll be jumping into kind of that bottom part of the list there. But just breaking that down, having a fun conversation around those players. And then we'll kind of wrap it up and we'll have another one coming out for you soon. So Sam, let's just kick it off. Let's talk about winter meeting, man. How did that go? What was discussed? Any rule changes that were voted on or that are coming down? And then just how did poker night go? It looked like a ton of fun from the photos that I saw. I wish I could have been there. I'm always out of town for winter meeting. I don't think I've made a single winter meeting since I became a captain. So
well, I'll work backwards. I'll start with poker night, and yes, it was a lot of fun. Poker night was kind of the draw to get people in the building for winter meeting. Usually we host winter meetings. Sometimes we've hosted winter meeting at our presenting sponsor, but 1356 hadn't signed on yet. So we decided, you know what? Let's not wait. Let's try to do this little fundraiser / social event with the SWBL. It was an all-inclusive event, so all beer, food, everything was paid for, Jello shots included. It was a fun night. So everybody put in not only their poker gambling money, but also they decided, we decided we would pay for everybody's drinks and food. So it was $35 per person, and we're hoping to do that in the future. We had some big winners that won some money. We had some people that had to drop out last minute. As you know, Brian, over winter break with families, our kids are getting sick. My family got sick over winter break. I understand it. So some people had to drop. We would have had more people. But ultimately for season 22, I'll tease a little bit, but we have two exciting projects coming to the Blur. And we are hoping to fund those projects a little bit more without having to raise league fees. So we're trying to find different ways to do that, whether that's through sponsorships or events like this, where, we're having a fun night together, food and drink is paid for kind of thing. Just come on out and gamble a little bit and have some money. Or have some fun making some money. And 16 players played poker. We had a couple more people show up for winter meeting, but 16 players actually played poker. We had 3 tables going, and we had 2 tables of 5 and a table of 6, and it was a lot of fun. The Mizzou game was on in the background. 4 people got eliminated before we merged to 2 tables, so we'll talk about them first. The first people out, Matt Germer wins the award, but we did have an Andy's Frozen Custard coupon for him. They expired 3 days after, so hopefully he used it quickly, but he got the Andy's Frozen Custard. And then Spencer Bogad, Kevin Wheatucker, and Corey McCarthy were eliminated, and then we merged to 2 tables. Myself, I got 11th place. Yes, that is my wiffle ball number as well, Brian, but I got 11th place. And then Brett was eliminated right after me. Blake was eliminated. Then we had our final 8. So our final 8, and I'll just go through the final 3. Your teammate Cam was the Astros representative at winter meeting, and he was 4th place. He almost got to the final 3, and final 3
Bubble boy.
is where the money is. Yes, he was bubble
Yeah.
boy, and I'll tell you, Brian, at winter meeting, we had so many people drop out that we decided, let's drop the 4th place money prize and let's raise. And then he got eliminated in 4th place, and he instantly said, no, I changed my mind. Let's not do that. So, but he was a good sport about it. It's always hard to be the bubble person not winning the money. But our big winners of the night were Eli Erickson, got his money back in 3rd place. Trent Davis from the Marlins also got 2nd place, and he doubled his money up. And then Jimmy Nelson is our big winner of the night. And
Boy,
so
oh
many
boy.
people, yeah, so many people will tell you Jimmy Nelson for poker, he was down and out so many times. There was a point he was the small stack going all in over and over again until he built it up. And then eventually he was, the biggest stack with Trent and Eli. It was going back and forth. So Trent and Jimmy had a nice head-to-head. At the end of the night with the final 3, I was the all-time dealer, so they didn't have to worry about that. Really professional atmosphere we had here at my household. Really excited for next year, hoping that more people will come out. Maybe we'll even get you out there if the timing works out. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it all happens. But it was a fun night. I thank everybody for joining us for poker night. And we got to stash a little bit of money away for a couple different projects we got going to the Blur. Will it fund the whole project? Absolutely not. But that's what league fees are for. We're not raising league fees, but we're going to use some of the league fees as well to kind of help fund some of the projects we're looking for that will help us long term in the future. So it'll be maybe this year might be a little tight on the money situation, but we've been saving the past couple years and saving and making a little bit more money this year to kind of help fund these projects. So no raised league fees for this year. And that's one of the topics from winter meeting. It was the same league fee, everything like that. I'll get to winter meeting. We had winter meeting right before we had the poker nights and before the Mizzou game started. Congratulations to the Tigers as well for winning their bowl game. And, it's very similar that from season 21 to season 22. Those 2 changes coming to the Blur will be a big change visually for people to see. But we didn't have much changes. We're keeping the same home run derby format. We're keeping this similar. We're not going to live stream every game. I want to try to live stream more games, but we're not going to live stream every game. We are going to work on making sure that all videos, that's part of the thing that we're trying to build at the Blur, is a situation where the GoPros will not overheat. That's basically one of the biggest video issues that we've had. And so many times they just died or gone kaput with our videoing. So we're excited. Some very similar things happening. Pool schedule again. The one thing we're going to try to do next year is we're going to have 2 to 3 pre-weekend games. We had 2 last year. We're trying to see if we can get 2 to 3 in. And then the goal is that everybody will have played a game before Saturday. So, the Yankees of the past, they have struggled, I know, to commit to playing on Friday with Sam Bakula traveling in, but we're really going to try to make sure everybody plays before Saturday. We don't want somebody having 5 games in a day like the Yankees have had the past couple of years. So we're gonna try it out. We're gonna make sure we're gonna get a lot more people. I know the Twins have said they want to do a pre-weekend game this year. I know you all have done one in the past. The Orioles, the Expos, the Brewers. There's so many teams that have tried that. The A's and Rockies joined the fray, so it can be done by franchises. It just kind of takes a little bit of effort, and it's a fun experience for all. Brian, I'll get to the rule changes. I know that this is always a big topic of conversation. We never really have a lot of rule changes. And some of these that we went through were just they should be in our rule book, but they were never in there. So it's kind of just like adopting one without a vote sort of thing. One of them was last year we had a situation where I think it was either your team or the Yankees. We couldn't remember. But there was a situation where somebody was on first base and it was hit into the Plinko tree in right field. And the ball goes in there, and the person who was on first base thought that it was going to be caught. So the person thought it was going to be caught, stayed on the base to possibly tag up, didn't want to get doubled up. Totally reasonable, understandable. But instead, it hit the Plinko tree, and that person didn't see it hit the Plinko tree, so stayed on first base. The person who caught it off the tree threw it instantly to the pitcher, and the pitcher caught it with 2 people on first base. Now, as our rule is written, it's dead ball situation, play stops. And since nobody was tagged out and there was no force out, they didn't get the guy at first, he was given second base because there was no rule. Everybody there was like, should this be an out? Absolutely, that should be an out. So the new rule is if the is thrown to the pitcher in a situation like that, he still has to run to second and complete the play. So even though it would be dead, the pitcher can stay in and let them walk to second because they might not want to risk overthrowing, right? They may not want to risk an overthrow and then getting more bases. So it's the pitcher's decision. Do I want to stay here? But in that situation, the pitcher could have walked, touched second base, and got them out. So it should be where you have to complete the play, especially in a Plinko tree situation. Won't happen a lot, but we want to make sure we add in a rule in the rule book that allows for that situation to complete the full play. So that's one that just kind of just needed to be there. This is one that we said last year. This is the Yankees and my brothers doing, but the Yankees tried to switch runners one time. You know, Gus got a walk and he wanted to go to third base to run, which we're not allowing. It's the runners have to occupy their own base. Now, the only time that would be different is if Gus was on first and third, then he could occupy third if he wanted to switch in that situation. He's more than welcome to, but you must occupy your own base as a runner. Just makes sense in so many different ways. You can't strategically pick somebody to go somewhere else because they might be a smarter base runner or something like that. So you must occupy your own base. Another another running rule is we are adding a pinch running rule this year and in the future. You said it before we started this podcast, Brian, we are all getting older. And we talked about me, and this was kind of a selfish rule on my part, but it's like, why haven't we done this yet? It doesn't really, just you could get more people involved this way. It could be, but we are adding a pinch running rule. After you run to first base. So if as an example, I use myself as an example. If on Friday my foot's feeling great, but Saturday, all of a sudden my foot's just like, I can't run anymore on it. I have to hobble to first base still to get my base, right? I still have to go to first base and make that play. But if somebody is in your lineup or if somebody is on your roster, but not in your lineup, let's say John Light's not playing that game, he can pinch run for me at first base. Everybody kind of agreed, like, yeah, you get one more person involved. Does that mean that the Twins could sign Mike Durstein back and make him run for Edlow? Absolutely. But it's going to be a lot like the softball courtesy runner. I coached high school softball for a long time, and you can have a courtesy runner for your catcher and your pitcher. So you have to, once that courtesy runner is for that person, it can only be for that person the rest of the game. So John Light could not pinch run for me and Brett. You know what I mean? It can only be for one person. Can you have multiple pinch runners? Absolutely. Will that pinch runner be credited for any runs scored or any games played? No. The stats will still count towards the person who got the hit. The runs scored will count towards the person who got the hit. Statisticians won't have to do any changes in the stats book for a pinch runner. You're not subbing anybody out. It's just a way for us to kind of save our ankles, save our feet. There's a lot of running involved and we're getting older. So why not add this rule and get more people involved and maybe get the younger guy. This is a perfect opportunity for Jack Light or Jackson Wilkes or somebody to join who's younger that just needs to run and understand the base running situation. So kind of a cool thing that might get some more people involved. What's your thoughts on that one?
I like that one a lot. I mean, it's not like we haven't done it in like special circumstances with
injury
players, things like that, where, like, hey, this guy's got a, bum or he pulled a hamstring, last at bat and he's trying to leg this out or whatever. And, people have
it's
been
not
hurt.
worth getting hurt more.
An Achilles injury one time. And yeah, so yeah, and I love it because you're right. We're all getting old, and now roster sizes can be doubled, and everybody can have their own runner.
There you go. If you really wanted to, you
elongate our careers.
That's right. That's right. I just think it's a smart business move in a sense of keeping people around. We're going to keep the running just because it's fun and it makes it more exciting. But it's something that I think we start needing. We're going to start needing, especially in the future. And then the last one and the biggest change is the 55-mile-an-hour penalty has been changed. There were many options that were thrown out. We even included your option of the 3 balls. What was voted on was it was 3 balls, 2 balls, and then there was even a suggestion to do however many. It'd be however many miles per hour over you are, that's how many balls you get. So if you were 7 miles an hour over, you would get 7 balls in that situation. But ultimately, we decided let's small changes at a time, see how it works. It wasn't too much of a hindrance, but there needs to be a bigger penalty. So if there's any ball that is 56 or above, it's going to be 2 balls instead of 1 for this year. So that was the change that has started. I'm interested to see how it plays out. There's been a lot of strategy from a lot of different pitchers to throw really fast, throw 58, 9, 60 miles an hour, and then come back to like 53. So that's why there was a lot of push to maybe do 3 balls or make it a really harsh penalty. So that kind of stops that, because 3 balls, I mean, that's, you throw 3 pitches, then you're done and over. So, and a walk. And we don't want to see walk numbers rise too much. So I think 2 is a good compromise for now. We'll see how it goes next year. So what's your thoughts on the 55-mile-an-hour change?
No, I like it. I mean, I think just like it's just the next evolution of our sort of experiment with keeping this a medium pitch league. We
Yeah.
Before, if you don't know, it used to just be a gentleman's rule, and we used to just call heat, and the pitch still counted, and it was an honor thing, and then
Yeah.
there were players that maybe if we had clocked them, maybe they sat around 55 at times, but there were probably times they were getting 60, and it's like you call heat and they just are struggling, or that's their groove, and it's hard, and you just kind of knew, or at the same time, then your pitcher could start pitching that faster because they weren't doing it. But then we instituted the speed gun, and then we had this whole thing about warnings and the captains talking and all of this stuff going on. And then we've just evolved this rule to try to make it as clear as possible for pitchers, as clear for captains, and also not waste a lot of time at the same time. The games are going longer and longer, and so hopefully this, again, I mean, 4 pitches. If you throw 4 and you can't get under 55, that's a pretty quick at bat still too. And I think it's hopefully enough of an incentive that
we'll see.
Pitchers are going to be more aware of it. Now, talk me through, is it basically the same scenario? Like, let's just say you're pitching and I hit a home run and you threw it at 56 miles an hour. I still get to keep the home run, right?
Yeah, so we did talk about the 56, and there were people that have been clamoring for a possible warning for 56. And, in the end, yes, it would save us time if we gave a warning for 56, or we allowed 56 to be played out if somebody swung at it. But in the end, this is a 55-mile-an-hour league. If we change that rule, that becomes a 56-mile-an-hour league. And yes, if you didn't swing, you would get 2 balls. But if you swing on a 56 and you pop it out, ultimately the pitcher did not follow the rules. Our rule is 55 for a reason. And if you're worried about getting 56 or above, don't pitch 53, 54, 55 miles an hour, pitch 48. Like, if you're that worried about it, that's why for me, like, we can do a harsh punishment if you want to. If pitchers want to fine line, get to 54, 56, then they should get a punishment for it. Like, if you're over 55, there should be a punishment. So if you don't want to be close to a punishment, then pitch slower. And you can still use this to your advantage. There are pitchers that if it's early in a count, you could throw quickly, but you better make sure you can get under 56 miles an hour, 55 or lower, and you better make sure you can hit the zone, or else walks are killer. That, Brian. Like, walks, I think, kill in the playoffs. If you have walks, it puts so much pressure. I've been on teams where people have been walk heavy. Gus was one of our scenarios where if he would pitch and he would get walks, he's in trouble. And he's a walk heavy guy. Brett used to be, before he found his command as of late, he used to be a walk heavy guy. And if you get walks, then it could, a grand slam, there's nothing worse than a grand slam to kill your inning. So, and those walks are the only reason that most of the time grand slams happen. So I think pitchers are going to try to avoid it a little bit more. And if we see our walk rates rise, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think pitchers just need to adapt.
Yeah, but just to clarify, so a positive outcome on a too fast ball, you have to keep.
You have to keep.
But a negative outcome for the batter on a fast is a redo still.
Yeah.
And I did 2 balls.
and you get the two balls. And I did look back, Brian, and I've been, pumping out some of the videos. I know you've been proud of me lately, but I've been pumping out videos, and as you watch the videos, you see a lot of those scenarios from the past season. And it really didn't happen as often as you'd think. It was like once, maybe twice a game on average. Like, and I say maybe twice, but like the average is probably one, like a game that maybe that happened where somebody threw over and it was positive. And there were some games that had zero, you know what I mean? Like it didn't happen all game, that even if somebody threw hot, it hit the zone because somebody watched it too fast. They swung through it because it's too fast. You know what I mean? It just changes your eye level so much. I don't know if it ever happened to me as a hitter. I know as a pitcher it happened to me, but as a hitter, I know when something's coming in hotter, because if I'm swinging through it and I'm that late, I'm like, okay, and I look back, okay, yeah, that's too hot, and then you get it back. But so it just depends, and we'll see how this year goes. But yeah, I think it's going to be good. And 4 rule changes going into the book, but some of them should have already been there, and this one I think is an easy, quick change that just kind of turns the dial a little bit more. But
Nice.
And then last thing that I will mention for winter meeting that I announced at winter meeting, I'm excited, and this is where we'll announce it first on the podcast. The SWBL will be featured, and I know you already know this, but the SWBL will be featured in the Natural History Museum in 2026 in Forest Park. The St. Louis History Museum is doing 100 years of baseball in St. Louis, and they've asked the SWBL to be a part of it. We're very excited to have 5 different artifacts from our history go into the museum. So stay tuned for the spring through fall of 2026. We're going to be featured in the History Museum. So we're hoping a lot of our guys go out and see the exhibit. I mean, we're going to be such a small part of it, Brian, but to be a small part of something like that is pretty cool that we were recognized by the city of St. Louis to do so. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very honored for the opportunity and just to be asked and everything. And really cool to be, a little piece of baseball history in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's move on real quick to the next topic, the free agents. We're going to just kind of catch up on just what has happened from a player perspective over the past 7 months or so.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rattle off a couple of the names, all the signings basically, or things that have happened. And then we're going to kind of jump into a couple names that we want to discuss that are still out there. So the big news, first big news was that PG retired. So he is not returning to any team, but to the Orioles after their championship, and is going out on top. So he is officially hanging him up, at least for now. Maybe he'll come back one day.
Who knows?
Who knows? But he has decided to retire. And then the other big, I would say the biggest signing, biggest news from a free agency standpoint was David Olderman has left the Astros to sign a 3-year deal. I think it was 3 years. Is that right?
3 years. Yep.
3 years, 3-year deal with the White Sox. And so, the White Sox get a really, really good number 2, that solidifying that rotation. That's been going in, when you look at preseason ranks and scouting reports and things over the last 2 years, that's been their biggest question mark, is who's that number 2 going to be? They've tried pretty much everybody. I think everybody except Baby John has pitched on that team in some capacity. And I'm not sure Tyler did actually last year, but he did. Okay. So everybody, and it just hasn't quite worked out. Not that the guys don't always have stuff, but it just hasn't been consistent for them. So this really solidifies them. And David's been a fantastic pitcher for the Astros and during his career there, to the point that, he kept getting the nod in the playoff games because he would have great years, and his hitting has improved with the opportunities that he got there too. So we'll see how that translates to being on the White Sox, but I think that's a huge get for that team. And I'm excited for David, and John just keeps on sabotaging me. So it is what it is. And we'll speaking of the Astros, Caleb Schweigert, their rookie, we signed him again for a 2-year deal. So he will be back on the team. Sam Eichenlaub.
Such a good team guy. Caleb Schweigert, such a good team guy. He'll pump you up more than anybody. Been his teammate on 2 different occasions at national tournaments, and he is just a guy you love having positivity
Yeah.
exuding out of his body. So
Yeah, hoping
love it.
hoping he brings an attitude of redemption from the National Wiffle Ball Tournament to SWBL weekend.
Yeah.
That was a rough ending, and I know he
Yeah.
felt for it, but as you all did. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's a great teammate. Will step in when needed. He's a great fielder, so
Yeah.
that really helps, especially with Cole Layton out in left field. That defense is really really solid now. And even Cam was nominated as a Gold Glove
Yeah. For
finalist
pitching.
for pitching. So, really solid there. And then he also brings pitching depth. We didn't get to see what he would do in medium pitch, but maybe he'll get a chance to show that a little bit this year. So,
Yeah.
Sam Eichenlaub
I can
returns
laugh.
to Eichenlaub. Okay, there's a U there. But he returns to the Expos. He was a rock star last year.
He was.
Absolutely fantastic. So that is huge for the Expos, with them trying to rebound, trying to get, back into contention again. He's going to be a solid person in their lineup going forward. So
Yeah.
solid there, solid sign there. And then the three amigos, Peter, Sam, and Brett, they all signed with the Orioles again for a year. I don't think anybody was surprised about that.
No.
Woo. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So
all signings I think that were expected, except for the David one, obviously. Um, David signing, I think it's a great signing for the White Sox. I think he'll fit in well on that team. And yeah, the Sam Eichenlaub one to the Expos, he's a loyal guy, and the Expos gave him the shot, and the Expos are on an 0-19 run right now. And if they're going to win, it's because Sam Eichenlaub is on the team. So I'm interested to see the rest of the offseason the Expos have planned.
you know what? They've got game one, so I'm sure they'll be game one against
They won it
somebody,
probably.
and they'll win it, and then they'll
They
do, you know.
so Brian, that's another thing at winter meeting. The Expos called out who they wanted as their opponent.
Oh, I bet I know who they called out.
It's not you.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
they called out. They want the Rockies. They called them out at winter meeting, and everybody turned to Blake like, is he going to accept? And I think I don't remember his. Blake's just the funniest response person you could ask for, and I forgot what his response was, but it was something to the tune of sure or yes or something. So we may have an Expos Rockies game one. We'll see.
Heck yeah. Expos setting up their roster or their schedule for you.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's great. I
call
love that
call
they
them out
did
at winter
that.
meeting.
I love that they did that. All right, well, let's play a little bit of a game. I want to talk about some guys who are still out there in free agency. And that can include rookies who have declared for the draft. I want you to pick two people to just discuss why they should be either signed or drafted. And then, what the best fit may be and what team that may be. And it could be, returning to the team they were on, or if they're a rookie, where do they might get the most playing time or whatever the case may be. Just give a case for what team they should go to and why. And I'll let you kick it off, but we'll go back and forth here. So I've got two, I'll do two and you do two. So you go
All
first.
right. So I'm going to start with a guy that he played in summer league this past year. There was, I think, three different, I don't know how many, maybe it was just two, like Andy's frozen custard players of the day, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And the Saturday frozen custard player of the day was someone who had never played at the Blur before until that weekend. And his name is Ryan O'Rear. He's declaring for the SWBL draft. He plays in the MOWIF League on the Mambas with Cole Layton, and he is one of the better hitters in MOWIF, and he has a really good medium pitch knuckleball. And Ryan O'Rear is a two-way player that can make an immediate impact on any team. I feel like after Summer League and people saw the stats this guy was putting up. I mean, he was putting up more home runs than myself, than Spencer, than Gus, in day one. And he was leading the charge for his team. I think they made it all the way to the finals, pretty much behind him and Jason Worsonholm's power bats. And Ryan O'Rear is a game-changing player, I feel like, for a lot of franchises. There's a lot of fear out there. Matt Germer or it was somebody who said, there's no way this guy goes to the Orioles, right? Because, the Orioles have a new spot open. And O'Rear played, with a lot of us. We know him really well. He came to the United Wiffle Ball tournament with Caleb, Gus, and I. And Jackson. So Ryan O'Rear is a guy out there. The best fit for him, honestly, you could put him on any team and he'd make an impact. Will he be on a team like the Yankees or the Twins? Probably not, because they're full up and they're good to go. The Orioles need a guy, and we are very late in the draft. But if a guy like O'Rear is still available and we need a spot to fill, then it'd be a big signing for the reigning champs. Do I think that'll happen? No. I think that he is going to get taken. I think he's going to get drafted early. I think the Expos would be dumb to not consider drafting him. I think the White Sox would be dumb to not consider drafting him if he falls to them. I think he can make an immediate impact on a team like the Athletics. I think he could add insane depth to your team, the Astros, and just be one more piece that could push you guys into your first playoff win. And then I think also, Marlins could take him, Rockies could take him. There's people that know him. Jordan Smith has played with Ryan before. Blake and Jason and Adam have played with Ryan before with the Rockies. So he has a lot of connections in this league. And I do believe that he will be the front runner for Rookie of the Year. There are some other people I may talk about in a second, but there are some other people that I really do think could join the league and make that impact on any of those teams that I named. I won't name them all. Obviously, you're saying just pick two, but I think he'll be the front runner for Rookie of the Year for sure. So that was a long-winded story, but I think Ryan O'Rear deserves a spot. And he's such a great guy. Like, he's just the nice guy. And he's another physical therapy guy. So we're going to have another Dr. Ryan O'Rear at the field if he's joined. So there you go.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah, he sounds interesting. Wish I could have seen him play a little bit. But yeah,
all the videos are online from Summer League.
I know. I
Go
need to
watch
get.
that guy
I need
hit.
to go. I need to go watch him. I haven't, like I said, I've sort of checked out of football for a little bit. So
That's true. So did I.
other than a few things, but yeah. So cool. Well, I want to jump over to some guys who came over from from MoWIF as well. When you're looking at the free agents and the pools of players who have been around for a while, if you go look at the free agent tracker, almost all of the guys who are still out there are probably going to re-sign with their own team. Most of them are no-brainers. I do want to highlight two players who probably will still re-sign with their team, but should they not, I still think they'll make a pretty big impact on whatever team may reach out to them. First one being Jordan Smith. Now, I think Jordan will be back with the Marlins. I think he's a pivotal piece for their lineup. I think that, him and Luke really are the core of that team, along with Eli. But yeah, I think that he's sort of the overlooked one because he's not really that part of that core, that group of friends that started that team. But he is so vital. And like I said, I think if he were to go sign with another team, if somebody were to reach out, the Expos or the White Sox, I think that he can make an immediate impact. The Astros, having some fluctuating in that four hole over the last year. So even the Orioles, like you said, are looking for another spot. And if they were to get Jordan, he doesn't have to pitch. He doesn't have to play the field. No. He can just hit, which is his best feature, other than his good looks. So there's a lot of places that I think he could go and make an impact immediately, step into whatever role is needed. So he would be one that I would be if I was a captain. Oh, wait, I am. If I was looking to fill a need, he would be one I'd be reaching out to just to see if there was any interest in maybe changing it up.
That's again, the thing.
I think it's a 98% chance he's going back to the Marlins.
Sure.
But you never know, because there have been times where players are like, it's pretty much a no-brainer, and then they get an offer and they want to maybe entertain it or want to try something new.
Yeah, so this league is so interesting because it's kind of like the Sam Eikenlaub situation, right? Or it's kind of like what we've talked about before, you and I. If you are going to a new team, you better make sure it's you're there for a while, or you better make sure you've cemented yourself in the league because Jordan could be loyal, stay with the Marlins. Marlins would probably keep this guy for life, right? But if he goes somewhere else, he kind of breaks that, that loyalty a little bit. Do the Marlins invite him back if the other team that he goes to doesn't want him eventually? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of that tricky thing as a free agent. The Marlins gave him a shot. The A's kind of did, but they didn't really give him the full scale of the shot that he should have been given. And they might be kicking themselves. They lost a gem, and the Marlins gained someone who is now basically a top 15, top 10 player. We'll get to the rankings in a little bit, but he's going to be cemented in that top 15 probably for a while. So the Marlins have a gem for sure. If he goes somewhere else, he better make sure it sticks.
Yeah, for sure. Who's
All
your
right.
second player?
My second guy is another Ryan, free agent. He's been declared for the draft in multiple years. His name is Ryan Brown. He is an excellent hitter. He's a lefty hitter. He can pitch a little bit medium. He has done it before. Pretty good fielder as well. He's got some tools to be successful. Very tall, lanky guy from the left side. We talk about loyalty. He is one of those loyal guys. Another one of the nicest guys you will meet. He's a rookie this year again. He just declared for the draft today. So he just signed as we're doing this. And I love his tenacity. He wants to come back. And he played on the Melonheads team with Jason Worstenholm, Spencer Bogag, Caleb Schweigert, Sam Eichenlaub, and Jimmy Stout, all players in the SWBL. They won the championship for the Melonheads at MOF this year. And Ryan is a guy that if you gave him a chance, even if it was just for, 3 or 4 games hitting, or a few games hitting here and there, or a fourth, a fourth backup role sort of thing, I'm sure he would still come down. He's lived in Arkansas, Virginia, different places. I don't even know where he is now, honestly, but he will travel for this weekend. He will stay with his cousin who lives in Festus, about 40 minutes away or so south of St. Louis. And he will travel and he will support your team kind of like Caleb Schweigert did this year for you all. I could see the Expos needing another great hitter to complement Sam Eichenlaub in that lineup. I could see Ryan Brown being a great point for him, and he played with Sam Eichenlaub on the Melonheads this year would be a good fit. I could see him, if we're to give him a shot, I could see him going somewhere to like the Athletics or the White Sox if they would give somebody random a shot that they haven't seen before. But I don't think those two teams would either. So I think the Expos is a good landing spot for Ryan Brown. Will that actually be pulled the trigger? Will the Expos go a different route? I don't know, but I think Ryan Brown should get a chance. And your second guy?
I'm gonna stay with the MOIF kind of thing here and go with Jason Worstenholm. Jason had a great year last year.
All-star.
Yeah, and again, I still think there's a really high likelihood he stays with the Rockies.
Yeah, they don't let him walk. I bet.
They have this 6-man team now, right? 6. Am I thinking that right? Yeah, 6.
Yep.
6-man team that they really like. They have a lot of camaraderie. They've gotten really close in the few years that since they've added Adam and Jason, and Grant came back and he's been talked about as the glue, and they got back into the playoffs, had a fantastic season.
Yeah, they did.
Adam and Jason sort of became the players we thought they would be when they first came into the league and really stepped it up. But again, he's a guy who I think that if other teams were to say, hey, we can try to give you more opportunity than you might get, or we can guarantee something, or you're going to be a bigger part of us succeeding than you might be with the Rockies, maybe entertaining that. He's got a lot of friends from MOWIF on multiple teams, so there could be an easy sell there where it's not so uncommon. He's also just been around enough time to where he's gotten to know some of the guys who maybe don't play in MOWIF. So picking a team that he could make an impact on. Again, I think there's a lot of teams. The A's could be a good one. The Orioles in that 4 spot, unless John wants to stay and play more. For added depth for the Astros, I think the A's would be a really good spot. They haven't. Well, I say that, but then they haven't had the best success with MOWIF guys. So, and I don't want to hammer the Expos. They're the easy answer because they went, they were
Yeah, they need it
1-9
though.
last, yeah, they're or they're
They need something.
they're on the rebuild again, and while they've got Jimmy to be a staple on the mound, Jason can pitch too. So
Yeah.
um so there's another option there. So I don't know. I think a lot of teams could reach out to him and make a case for why he could entertain maybe switching teams, but in the end, I do think he'll end up back with the Rockies.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tough to leave after the year they had to, and I know their camaraderie has been high. I
Mhm.
know Chad Young. We had a podcast with him and Paul Castellano recently, and I think Chad told us the name of their text thread group. So they do text quite often. I feel like so. I think it's it. I think the Rockies would be dumb to let Jason walk, but it is an interesting proposition to see if he would go somewhere else. So I like that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason.
Yeah. Yeah. So, captains, sign your players,
Yeah,
get them, even if it's just the 1-year deals that are starting to become pretty standard. Get them signed up so we just kind of know what's going on and it's not dragging in and you're not Blake, last minute.
sign them all at one
Here's
time.
all here's all of the contracts. Just get it done. And that way, if there are people who maybe you're not considering re-signing, other teams can maybe reach out to players or try to find the home for them, something like that. So,
Yeah,
to wrap up the free agency talk, I did want to address one thing that I've heard some rumors on, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I did hear it came up in winter meetings, but I've heard a bit of grumbling about players and contracts and um, just teams or other players maybe not being as respectful about it. Um, Now, let me preface this by saying this league is for fun. This league is a bunch of friends. It is built on friendship. It is the foundation. As Scott said once, which I love this quote, and I probably quote him all the time, but it is the vehicle for a family and for our friendship. So bearing that in mind, you know, when it comes to contracts and players being on contracts, I don't believe there's a single captain who's going to hold somebody's feet to the fire and say, there's no way you can't go play somewhere else if that's what you want to do. However, as a captain, especially a captain who had to start out a team not knowing that close of players and
yeah,
having to build a roster and having to rebuild a roster and rebuild a roster, we if a player is going to sign for a multi-year deal, we expect that commitment for the most part to be honored. Now, of course, there can be a conversation of saying, hey, I don't think this is working out, or this isn't as much fun. Maybe I want to try something else. If that happens, I don't think any of my players, and I think you could ask some of my players or previous players, that I have never shut that out. I've never
yeah,
said, well, tough. But trying to build a team and fill in holes and pieces to be competitive in an increasingly competitive league makes it tough whenever you're counting on a player to return who's under contract and then they don't want to, or they're let me rephrase that, or they are being approached by another team who knows they're under contract to try to convince them to just leave and it doesn't matter. I think conversations need to be had between the player and the captain. If there is any kind of disgruntlement or anything like that. Um, and I think that players need to be respectful. And if you don't know that you can commit to a long-term deal, sign a 1-year deal. Most players in this league sign a 1-year deal.
yeah,
And while we've talked about it in free agency, they return more often than not. I've been trying to sign Sam for freaking ever. And the dude has promised me it's coming 1 year.
yeah.
He's an Indian. He lies. He doesn't do it, but he signs 1-year deals. And I ask him every year, when's it going to be? And he
Yeah,
resigns, and it's okay. But he signs a 1-year deal, and he wants to have the opportunity to maybe decide something different the next year. And
yeah,
a lot of players do that. Brett, Peter, all of the Rockies, um, right now a
Twins,
lot of the
Spencer
Marlins.
Bogad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spencer Bogad. Spencer Bogad says, every year he's like, I'm a free agent.
I'm
Talk to
done
me
with
if
the
you
tour.
want me to come. I'm willing to entertain any offers on the table.
Yeah.
Players choose to do that, and then they can choose whether or not to return to their own team or not. So just do that.
Yeah.
If it's going to be a problem, just sign a 1-year deal as a player. Don't
So
put your
another example I'll give everybody to kind of go with you as well is, Gus signed a 10-year deal with the Yankees with Scott.
Mhm.
And Scott even said, Gus, if you ever want to go somewhere else, just tell me and
Yeah.
and we'll take it out. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So you're right. It needs to be a conversation. There needs to be a conversation between player and captain if something
Yep.
like that happens. And that's what was mentioned at winter meeting is player and captain need to have that conversation. No captain's going to hold you liable. None of these contracts mean anything. There's no penalty for a player breaking their contract because you said in the end it's friends and being family together. So if
Yep.
there's anything that you want to try or do something, if I signed this 1-year deal with the Orioles this year, but if I told John, hey, I want to go somewhere else, John would be like, all right, see ya. Like, you know what I mean? Go have
Yep.
fun. If you want to come back, come back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's I agree with a lot of what you said. I hope that players and captains and players and anybody can go up and talk to each other. I hope, me and you can have a conversation about me joining the Astros one time and there's no hard feelings if it's not that year, but, in the future it could be. Or if if I decided, hey, you know what, Brian, I'm going to join the A's instead of the Astros this next year. And you might be mad at me for a little bit, but, it just happens, there might be reasons for it.
There's always a reason. There's always a reason. But
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, just don't put the league in a position where we have to require 1-year deals or something like that. Don't. This is for fun. The contracts are for
It's supposed
fun.
to be, yeah. It's always for
This
fun.
league is for fun. And don't create animosity because you want to play with a friend who is under contract for another guy. And even if they're, and just start putting bugs in their ears. Like if you see that they're unhappy, yeah, have a conversation. I know that there are conversations going on all the time of like, how much fun would it be to play together 1 year?
Yeah.
But don't
Yeah.
put, you can put captains and other people in the league who you're also friends with in really difficult situations of having to have a conversation with their captain or the captain having to be in a conversation where, he's blindsided. And of course he's going to let you out of the contract, but now now he's,
Scrambling.
yeah, he's trying to be the good guy while also keeping his team afloat. So, just be respectful, and do it the right way is kind of my point. And I wanted to make a little public announcement about it because I had just heard some grumblings. I didn't get to attend winter meeting and talk about it. And this is a platform that Sam is about to kick me off of because I've done this. So let's move on now that that's over. Let's talk about the rankings. So let me kind of break this down and how this is going to work over the next couple podcasts. We are going to announce the top 22 players of season 22 in a reverse order. Starting tonight, we are going to discuss players 22 through 16, as well as some of the players who maybe just missed the cut or fell off of previous, lists or anything like that. And then the next episode, we will take the next chunk of players, and then we're going to do it in a 3-part series. So stay tuned to see who that number 1 player is. But we are going to kick that off tonight. So let's start out with players who have fallen off the list.
All right. So, Brian, I appreciate we're doing this kind of in a different way. In the past, we've done it where it's been one at a time. Last year we're 21. We've been doing this since season 18. So this is not a new venture for us, but this year we're doing it a little bit different. Not every player is going to have their own graphic. We're going to do a list graphic for 22 through 16. That'll come out soon after this podcast is released. And then we're going to have 15 through 6, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 will have their own graphic, kind of revealing those a little bit slower. But that'll always be after our podcast together. So a 3-part podcast series, Brian. I'm very excited to do these with you and kind of break it down a little bit more. Talk about how many rankings they went up or down, their highest ranking, lowest ranking throughout the years. And I have that breakdown in front of me too since season 18. So it's this is the 5th year of this. So we have a lot of tangible, like
Yeah.
historical data now of this, of this topic. And a lot of leagues do this now across the country. It used to be only the JAL league in Washington did this. I stole it from them, and all of a sudden it started blowing up. And then a lot of leagues do it, which is great. It's an easy content for your league to put out, and it's a fun one to do as well. We have our players vote. We had 17 players vote this year. I think it might be around the average range of what we had. I think maybe we had 20 last year. So 17 this year. I don't vote on these. I will break a tie if necessary, but a lot of the ties I break by who has the highest amount of the highest ranking, if that makes sense. Had to do that in previous years with like Spencer and Gus. Like a lot of them, they were tied in so many years. So then, okay, who had the most number 1 votes? That'll be our person that goes number 1. So I don't think I've ever really broken a tie even. So it's nice to kind of remove myself from the situations and just see the player. And there are players that, rank themselves high. And if they rank themselves high, don't worry, the highest and the lowest ranking fall off, and things like that too. So let's start with some people that they had 1 vote and the rest of them, they were unranked. So these are the people that just had 1 vote. I'm not going to say much about them, just only got 1 vote within the top 22. And that is Chris Vorbeck, Adam North, Grant Boyd, Jack Light, Trent Davis, Evan Coe, David Olderman, Derek Cornell, and Brian Kenny. So those players had 1 vote within the top 22. Now, obviously, they didn't make it. They're unranked. But we had a total of 39 players that were ranked in somebody's list, does that make sense? So
Yeah.
only 22 can make it, but we had 39 total players, which goes to show how expanding of skill level we are getting as a league, that there are now 39 players that are getting votes to be a part of that top list. So we're good through season 39, Brian. We have enough players that are getting votes now.
I think we're gonna have to put a cutoff, like after season 25, we maybe just stick with the
25.
top 25.
I think
for a
so.
while.
I think 25 is going to be the cutoff, I believe.
Yeah. Real quick, before we move on, I want to talk about some of those players. Did any of those players surprise you that they didn't get more votes?
Yes and no. I mean, most of them too. Like the highest ranking out of those players, I guess, was a 13 from Chris Vorbeck. You can
Oh,
probably
wow.
tell it's probably from one of his teammates that is hoping that he comes back. Is Chris Vorbeck a top 15 player? He's played like it before. Could that ranking play out? But obviously the highest ranking fell off for him, and that was his only ranking was 13. The next highest after that was an 18 spot. So, I mean, even that, the 18 ranking is pretty low in a sense. So none of these really surprised me. Is it surprising that some of them maybe didn't get a second vote? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a guy like Trent Davis, who proved it last year for the Marlins on the mound. He's proved it the past couple of years. David Olderman is another one. Brian Kenny, just knowing him and his fielding prowess, you're surprised. Adam North, another one too, who was rookie of the year and had a decent season last year, but he didn't get as much playing time last year, so it didn't surprise me as much that he fell off. But there's a lot of good players in the league, Brian. But you're going to like the next 2. These are the 2 players that got 2 votes, and the rest were unranked. Just 2.
Okay. Just 2.
Edlo Donnan
Okay.
and you.
I got votes.
And Brian did not vote for himself, people.
What?
So Brian got 2 votes.
Votes.
You did. You got 2 votes. Your highest ranking was an 18 this year, Brian. An 18. So people really playing in the manager role and also playing in, you get the opportunities, Brian. You're taking advantage of it. So it was funny. Yeah, it was fun to see. And I will tell you, the 2 players that voted for you were also 2 captains. So I think captains respect captains in that way.
Cool.
So I'm not going to reveal who, obviously, but just that little clue for you. So you were the 30th ranked player in the SWBL this year by average.
I changed my mind. We're gonna go to at least 30.
Yeah, there you go. So 30th ranked player in the SWBL, Brian
Thanks,
Benware,
gents.
and 29 was Edlo. So that's kind of the first tier of the players that fell off.
Okay.
The other tier are the people that just missed the cut. So
Okay.
this is your 23 through 28. So this is
Okay.
the main people. They have multiple votes, but you just missed the cut. In no particular order, I will say who the person was the closest in a little bit, but in no particular order, you have John Callaway just missing the cut. You have Keaton Adams, who received multiple votes, not missing the cut, had a great year for the Athletics last year. Jimmy Nelson not making the cut this year for the top 22. Paul Castellano, Steve Hayes, and then the one person who was the closest person by a mere 2 points, 2 ranking points, was Jimmy Stout. So just missing the cut. He's number 23. The rest of them, I'm not going to tell you the order or anything like that, but yeah, Steve Hayes, Paul Castellano, Jimmy Nelson, Keaton Adams, and John Callaway all kind of falling off, some of them the list. If you go back to last year, the people that fell off, those, so many people, let me find my list here. I just gave one away, my bad. John Callaway has been ranked 16th. He's been ranked upwards of 11th before, but fell off this year. That one surprised me a little bit, the John Callaway one, because John had many impacts for his White Sox team. And that was kind of the one that surprised me. He fell about 12 spots in the ranking. So really fallen a little bit more than I thought he was going to. But maybe some people just forget about it because the year they had, just when you have a not so great season, sometimes that comes, but John's going to take that and use it as fuel to the fire. And the White Sox are going to be right back to where they started for playoffs. And then the Jimmy Stout one, he was ranked 18th last year, unranked this year, got a lot of votes, but literally missed it by 2 points. So very close for Jimmy Stout too. But yeah, any of those surprise you that have just missed the cut? I know Jimmy's probably going to be on your list, but any of those?
Yeah, Jimmy's on my list. He's the first one, probably most surprised about. Just with, he's had 2 really good years back to back, and that one surprises me a little bit. I'm surprised Jimmy Nelson wasn't on the list. Just with his pitching prowess. If you weighed out the importance of pitching and hitting, that the pitching can go a long way. And the guy's always in the Cy Wiffle contention, always leads the league in strikeouts. So it's surprising that he couldn't crack the top 22. Even though, he had a really, really bad year at the plate. And the Expos, I do think that it seems like, at least this year, a lot of players got left off based on how their teams performed. Callaway being left off, probably more of an indicator of how the White Sox season went.
Paul,
Jimmy, those guys. Paul won gold hands or platinum hands.
It's back-to-back years for Paul not being ranked on this list. Back-to-back years.
That's wild. Like he's the best fielder in the league last year, and he can't even crack the top 22.
Season 18, Paul was ranked 10th overall in the league, and his next highest ranking was 14. The other 3 years he's been unranked. So Paul's one of those guys too that can get hot and he can change the ball game. But it's been a different player since the Rays for sure.
Yep. So I think in years past, I've discussed with whoever I've had on during the recap of the top players, how voting works and how people vote, and I tried changing the way I vote a little bit more to align with what the league tends to do, and kind of encompassing what have they done over the last few years, what do we think they can do this year, kind of thing. I used to just vote for last year. It seems kind of like a lot of players voted for, I don't know, this year. Actually,
we'll see.
I can't tell you what they voted, how they voted, what went into it, because Paul Castellano being left off, Jimmy Stout being left off, Jimmy Nelson being left off, John Callaway being left off. Those are surprises.
But again,
I'm interested to see who made the lists.
And I will tell you, there are 5 people that are making their list debut that have never been ranked before. And you will know all 5 of them today because they are in that 22 through 16 range.
Okay.
But when we say these players, you're like, well, okay, yeah, like the league is just really deep, and you
Mhm.
have to have a super good season to kind of get put on the map and have that a recent season, excuse me. You got to have a good recent season to kind of get put on the map here. So it's going to be tough to crack the list in the future with so many people getting better and better. All
Yeah.
right, let's start it off. Number 22, your number 22 player for season 22, heading into it, making his debut for the SWBL on this list. At number 22 is Josh Anthony of the Marlins. Josh Anthony had an incredible year for the Marlins. I think he had a better year than his teammate Luke Bakula at the plate. He was like
Yeah.
top five in OPS plus slugging, or the OPS, excuse me, on base plus slugging. He was so good at the plate this year and was one of their co-aces. So he is a player that I think deserves to be on this list. I thought he might have been higher, but he comes in at number 22. I will tell you, his highest ranking was number 5,
Oh.
and and his lowest ranking obviously was he was not ranked.
Mhm.
But after number 5, his highest ranking was 18. So he had a lot of those low teens. He had a lot of high 20s. So 22 was a good spot for him to fall after the 5 and the not ranked fell off for him. But Josh Anthony coming in at 22. He had a good season.
Yeah, he did. He made my list.
Yeah.
So I was he was really solid for them, and like you said, he had better seasons than Luke and Jordan.
Yeah.
So really solid. And then you add that weighted pitching in, and
Yeah.
he's a really nice piece that has kind of come into his own. So hopefully he can continue that this next year.
Yeah. I think out of the 17 people that voted, he didn't make 6 lists. So pretty good.
Okay.
All right. So next for number 21 on our list is Will Rath. So
Okay.
Will has been he has been ranked 17th, 18th, and 15th, and last year he was unranked. So he comes back onto the list for this year. So Will Rath is on the list. His highest ranking was 10, and his lowest ranking was unranked. I should just say the lowest ranking for all these players was they weren't ranked. But number 10 for Will Rath. I'm going to keep going a little bit here quickly, and we can talk about him afterwards. But number 20 is debuting on this list is Sam Eichenlob. Sam
Okay.
Eichenlob coming in at number 20. His highest ranking was number 8, Brian, on the list, and it wasn't from one of his Expos teammates. So
Wow.
a lot of respect for Sam Eichenlob coming out there. Number 19 is another one of the guys that you talked about in the free agency, and that is Jason Worstenholm after his All-Star appearance at 19. His highest ranking was number 7. Again, not from one of his Rocky teammates. So garnering some respect there is Jason. Speaking of Jason's teammates, number 18 making his debut, Mr. Chad Young. PO only and the MVP of the All-Star game with his bat. He won the All-Star game MVP because of his bat. Mr. Chad Young comes in. His highest ranking was number 5. And Chad had a few, I think I'm counting it here. He had 4 top 10 votes this year, was Chad Young. So 4 top 10 votes for Chad Young. Highest was 5. Definitely deserves to be on this list after the year he had, and really catapulted the Rockies into the playoffs and helped them win their first playoff game. So Chad Young, a good one there. Number 17 on our list is Mr. Luke Bakula, our biggest faller of the year. He has fallen the most spots out of anybody on this list, but he is still ranked because he was so high last year. But Luke Bakula coming in, he had 2 top 10 votes still. So he still had a number 10 ranking, 2 number 10 rankings on the list. But Luke Bakula, it comes in at number 17. And then our final one to round out this list, number 16, is Ty Butler. So Ty Butler was ranked 17th last year. He goes up to number 16, so gaining 1 spot. And when Ty showed up, White Sox with Ty are 4-1. Without Ty, they're 0-5.
Yeah.
So Ty Butler is a difference maker for that team. So that is 16 through 22. I'll say it again. Ty Butler, Luke Bakula, Chad Young, Jason Worstenholm, Sam Eichenlob, Will Rath, and Josh Anthony. We will have a graphic out so everybody can see it, and we'll kind of go through the high and lows and little things about each one. But Twitter will have individual rankings going out too, so we'll be able to talk about each player. But yes, that is 16 through 22. We talked about Josh Anthony a little bit, Brian, but talk about your your reactions to this. Is there anybody that you thought would be on this list that now is going to be ranked higher? Or is there, you're glad to see the debuts? All 5 debuts are there, but what's your reactions?
Yeah, well, so there's a player that hasn't been mentioned from 16 to 22, as well as player who didn't make the list or dropped off the list that I'm surprised is on the list. I'm not going to say that name. I'll just throw that out that there's somebody that I'm pretty surprised hasn't been mentioned, meaning that they're ranked higher, and I'm not sure they should be on the list.
Okay.
So anyway,
Based on the year they had last year?
based on a couple years.
Okay.
So anyway, I think this locks up. I hearing some of the votes and the top votes, it's like a little surprising. Like, yeah, he got a top 10, he got a top. I don't know about that, and luckily we throw those out. But Ty Butler being 16, being the top of this first list, and he missed 5 games. I mean, it does really show the impact he had,
Yeah,
especially because
for
he
sure.
really struggled the last couple of years
Yeah,
prior to that. So he came in, was a rocket, was amazing. It really shows what I think this is one of those kind of voting scenarios. It's not always based just on last year. It could be, what do we think is going to happen this year? What do we think that they really are? Because he's been an all-star. He's been
yeah,
rookie of the year. He's been top 3 in fielding voting. So he can be a top 10 player.
for sure.
And Chad Young being down to 18, being the Cy Wiffle award winner. He's a pitcher only, so that probably hurts him a bit. But
Yeah,
yeah, still glad to see him there. Yeah, I'm happy Jason and Sam and Will got on there too, and Josh Anthony, like we talked about. So
yeah.
it does make sense, like you said, when you hear the names, you're like,
That's
yeah,
why
okay.
some of the people
Like,
below, yeah.
I still personally may change something about it, but in general, it's
Yeah.
pretty right.
And this voting comes down to everybody has their own opinions. And is there a recency bias? Yes. But is there still historical data that people think of? Because ultimately, this is who do you think is the top 22 heading into season 22? So there was a lot of storylines that I sent the voters, like one of which, like my injury, for example. Like, how does my injury play into people's minds when they're voting going into season 22? Did I have a really good season last year? Was I the second best overall player last year in season 21? Yes. But will that transpire this next year knowing that my injury is there? There's so many other scenarios like that. And like you said, Chad Young being a PO, is that why he's so low, even though he had one of the best pitching performances we've ever seen? Luke Bakula dropping so many, that's recency bias, right? That's his fall from grace is he had a fantastic year with Jordan the previous year in season 21 or season 20. And then in season 21, he dropped off and there was even times he was pulled from the lineup, Brian. He was pulled from the Marlins lineup for somebody else to hit. So it's interesting to see how these fall, but I do think that this group is there for a reason. Jimmy Stout being the odd person out, and these numbers for the voting is so interesting because if you tiered these out, the third tier would probably be 16 through 23 because that's how close Jimmy was. But the 15 and above, it's a clear tier based off of the voting, which is interesting because you're right. There are some people on this list that did not have good years last year and did not have, but is that historical data kind of playing into people's minds? So
Right.
in our next episode together, we will probably see some of those people that we have in our heads and we'll be able to break it down and talk about it a little bit more. So that is our 16 through 22. So everybody look out for those graphics coming out for those coming up.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, that is about to wrap it up for us. We, like we said, we're going to continue this series with our top 22 countdown for 2 more episodes. So stay tuned for those breakdowns, and I'm sure in that last one we'll get a big picture overview.
Sure.
What do we think? All of that.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll also get to captains interviews. Those are going to be coming out again. So stay tuned to that as we get closer. We're going to have all your traditional, all the stuff you come to expect, your preseason rankings. We're going to do the division draw live. We're going to do a lot of things, a lot of content coming in the next 5 months to build up the anticipation for what is always one of the best weekends of all of our years. So with that, Sam, get us out of here, bud.
Brian, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Now, Brian, do you want me to do one more activity with you real quick?
Yes,
Okay, this is going to be a super fast way to end this thing, Brian. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I've seen these guys on social media before, and they've done these blind rankings. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm about to give you 5 players that are not Hall of Fame players, and I have an order that I have pre-written down on this piece of paper that I am not changing. You have to blind rank them 1 through 5. So the first person I say, you have to put them in a spot. You can't change it. Make
Okay.
sense? And we'll just see if it goes goes chalk according to you. Are
So
you
they are
ready?
not Hall of Famers, and I'm blind ranking them.
Yep. So I'm going to give you one person. You have to put them 1 through 5, and it sticks there. So it may
All
work
right.
out in the end. It may not. It's going to be fun. You ready?
This will be
Here
fun.
we
Yeah.
go. Number 1. Pick where he goes. Steve Hayes. 1 through 5. There could be players on this list that I say later on that are worse. There could be players that are better. You don't know. So it's
Oh,
blind ranking.
4.
4. Okay, Steve Hayes going in the 4 spot. All right, next one. Former teammate of Steve, Luke Bakula. Luke Bakula.
Oh.
Non-Hall of Famers.
Wow.
There's plenty of great players out there that have not been Hall of Famers.
Uh,
It's gonna be
2.
current 2.
2.
Luke
We're
Bakula going at 2. Okay. Luke going at 2. Steve Hayes at 4. You have the odd numbers left, 1 3 5. Next
okay.
player, Kyle Breida.
Ooh. I
Kyle
really
Breida.
like Kyle.
But is he number 1?
3.
3. Okay, so this always happens in the social media guys too. They always leave 1 and 5 open at the end because they're just trying to get the middle. All right, this will be really interesting because your last 2 have to be good or
1 and
bad, either
5.
one.
They're
Yep,
great.
it's
They're gonna
got.
be like the best. Okay.
Yep. All right. The next player is Kyle Cornell.
5.
5. Quick one, which means your number 1 player out of all these, and he's gonna love hearing this, is Edlo Donnan. Edlo Donnan
Darn
is
it.
your number 1.
No.
Well, Edlo will be happy to hear that. So your final
Congrats,
ranking is
Edlo. I
Edlo, then
love you,
Luke,
bud.
then Kyle Breida, Steve Hayes, and Kyle Cornell. Thanks for playing, Brian. I know it's hard to do, but blind
Boy.
ranking, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish. Yeah. No, this was fun. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'd have bumped it around a little bit, but yeah, it was fun.
But like your middle's pretty close. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like the voting rankings that we're doing. Do you base it off of past history? Do you base it off of championships? Do you base it off of awards or stats or whatever you want? So just a
Yeah.
fun thing to end it up. But thanks for doing this podcast again. I know it's a
Mhm.
little bit longer to all the listeners and viewers out there, but hope you enjoy all the content. Lots to talk about and catch up on. And
Mhm.
like you said, 2 more ranking podcasts to go.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.